Good morning, children. Today in English in class 11, we take up the chapter The Portrait of a Lady. And yes, we had left the point of time when the author had gone abroad for 5 years. He left thinking that he may not be able to see his grandmother alive because she was old, but she was so sure and bold and confident that she would survive, and she was there at the station to welcome him. But that was not so. That meant that she was alive and there to welcome him at the station. After 5 years, I came back home and was met by her at the station. That he returned, he completed his studies for 5 years and returned home. She did not look a day older. She looked exactly the way that he had left her like. She still had no time for words. That is, that just as when she had gone to see him off at the station, likewise today she came here to welcome him, but she had absolutely no time for words. That meant no interaction. And while she clasped me, that means she held me in her arms, welcomed warmly, I could hear her reciting her prayers, that she continued to recite her prayers even when she clasped him in her arms. Even on the first day of my arrival, her happiest moments were with her sparrows. That is, even the day he returned, there was so much of excitement in the house, but her happiest time was the time that she spent with the sparrows, whom she fed longer. That means she fed them for a longer time, and also and with frivolous rebukes. Rebukes means to criticize or to reprimand sharply. Frivolous means in a light-hearted manner or in a casual manner. So she would scold them, talk to them, scold them lovingly, affectionately. So that is the way she spent her time the day he returned from abroad. In the evening, a change came over her. He saw that there was something unusual that she did that day. What was that? She did not pray. This was the only occasion perhaps when she did not pray. Otherwise, throughout we see that she was constantly telling the beads of her rosary and reciting her prayers. She collected the women of the neighborhood, got an old drum and started to sing. Now, what she did was that all the women nearby, she got them all together, got an old drum and started to sing. And this is what she did for several hours. For several hours, she thumped, that meant beat, the sagging skins of the dilapidated drum. That is, that she collected the women of the neighborhood and she sat with them, sang songs with them, and beat upon the old dilapidated drum. Dilapidated means old and worn out. So that is the way she spent her time. So dilapidated also could mean in a state of ruin, which is extremely old, and sang of the homecoming of warriors. So that is the way she spent many hours. We had to persuade her to stop overstraining. We, that is the family, had to persuade means to compel her, force her to stop. Stop what? Singing songs and beating the drum, to avoid overstraining. That meant that the exertion would perhaps create problems for her, or she might fall sick, and they did not want that to happen. That was the first time since I had known her that she did not pray. And this was perhaps, he says, that this is the first time, the first occasion ever since he could remember, that she did not pray or she had omitted her prayers. The next morning she was taken ill. She fell ill, that is, it was a mild fever, and the doctor told us that it would go. So the doctor had been called, and after he examined, he just stated that there was nothing seriously wrong with her, that it was mild fever, slight fever, and she would rest and recover. But my grandmother thought differently. That is, the grandmother did not agree with the statement made by the doctor. What she meant was that she told us that her end was near. She did not agree that when the doctor said that she had simple fever, slight fever, and she would recover, she knew very well that she would not survive now, that the journey of her life was going to come to an end, that her end was near, that is her death. She said that since only a few hours before the close of the last chapter of her life, she had omitted to pray. She was not going to waste any more time talking to us. So, what she had come to realize that her end was near, the journey of her life was going to come to an end, and the previous evening she had spent hours, she had not recited her prayers, rather she had she sang songs with the neighbors and beat the drum. Now she was not going to waste any more time talking to us. That meant that she did not want to waste even a single moment. She just wanted to continue to pray. We protested. Now naturally the family was concerned about her health and felt, but she was not prepared to listen to any of them. She ignored our protests. Obviously, they tried to assure her that she would recover, but she did not listen to any of them. She lay peacefully in bed, praying and telling her beads. That is, she was very calm, she maintained her composure, she was not upset, she was not disturbed, but she only simply wanted to continue to tell her beads and pray. Even before we could suspect, her lips stopped moving and the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. Even before we could suspect, that means while they were trying to assure her that she would recover, before they could realize, her lips stopped moving and the rosary which was there in her hands, that fell from her lifeless fingers. That meant that she had passed away. She died a very peaceful death and that she was not alive now. A peaceful pallor spread on her face and we knew that she was dead. A pallor, that is pale. So her face had become pale on account of her death. So before they could realize they were there, suddenly they came to understand that the rosary, when it fell away from her fingers and when her lips stopped moving, it was an indication that she had passed away. We lifted her off the bed and, as is customary, laid her on the ground and covered her with a red shroud. So, since we lifted her, that meant that after death, she was removed as customary means according to the custom and placed her on the ground and covered with a red shroud. Shroud is a piece of cloth put over a dead body before cremation. After a few hours of mourning, we left her alone to make arrangements for her funeral. So, for a few hours they remained over there. They were extremely saddened to see the grandmother passed away, for the author, of course, and then they had to make all necessary arrangements. So, they left her alone for some time. In the evening, we went to her room with a crude stretcher. Crude, a simply made or a roughly made stretcher on which her dead body would be carried out to take her to be cremated. That is, the last rites to be performed. Then the sun was setting and had lit her room and veranda with a blaze of golden light. So it was afternoon time and they brought the stretcher for her to be taken for the cremation. We stopped halfway in the courtyard. We stopped. Why? Because they were astonished, they were surprised, they had not expected this. And what was it? All over the veranda and in her room, up to where she lay dead and stiff wrapped. That is, all over the veranda and in the room where her body lay, her dead body lay, where she had been placed, thousands of sparrows sat scattered on the floor. That is, what they saw was, what surprised them, what astonished them was that there were thousands of sparrows all over the place. There was no chirping. And today, the most surprising thing was that they were not chirping today. We felt sorry for the birds and my grandmother fetched some bread for them. We felt sorry, thinking that they used to be fed by the grandmother. So they had come here for the breadcrumbs which used to be given by the grandmother every afternoon. So the mother, that is the author's mother, went, brought bread, broke it into little bits and gave it to the birds and threw it to them, that is so that they could have it. The sparrows took no notice. That is the breadcrumbs which had been given, which used to be given every afternoon, and they used to have it, and there used to be such loud noise and the chirping of all the birds, and today there were thousands assembled there, but they simply ignored the breadcrumbs. Took no notice means ignored the breadcrumbs. When we carried my grandmother's corpse off, corpse is the dead body. So when they carried on the stretcher, when they carried the grandmother's body, they flew away quietly. That meant that was their way of mourning the death of the grandmother. Like human beings assemble in such a situation, likewise today the birds did not chirp, which normally they used to do, and when the breadcrumbs were given to them, they completely ignored, and as soon as the grandmother's body was taken out of the home, they also flew away quietly. So that was something really amazing. Next morning, the sweeper swept the breadcrumbs into the dustbin. And next morning, it had to be cleaned up, and the sweeper picked up and threw the breadcrumbs into the dustbin. Thank you.